Hello, and welcome to the Miami Showband Peace Center Online, a truth and reconciliation platform project. Music is a universal language that transcends all barriers. It is an unassailable platform where truth and love are safe. And during our darkest days, it gave us leave to clap our hands and to dance together. Music is a bridge over troubled waters. Truth and Reconciliation Platform, or TaRP as it's commonly called, invited artists to dedicate a song or a piece of music to victims of the conflict on the island of Ireland, frequently referred to as the Troubles, or to an event or a memory that for them holds a particular poignancy. What follows is their response to our invitation. Well, you're very welcome. And if there is folk music royalty in this country, my guest today certainly qualifies for that. You're very, very welcome, Robbie O'Connell.
Nice to see you, Stephen.
We go back a long time.
We do. Back to Christian Brothers and Carrick and Shure in the 1960s.
Yeah, but you moved in from, you were sort of the new boy, weren't you?
Yeah.
You were the new boy. Your father, your mother was obviously from Carrick and Shure, but
I think it was 8 when we moved to Carrick, probably 1959, either late 1958 or 1959. I can never remember which year it was.
Yeah.
So I went to the Green School first for a year or two, and then to the monastery, as we call it, where that's when we got to know each other.
Where were you before that? Before you came to Carrick?
We're in Waterford, in Waterford City. So I went to St. Declan's for the first few years.
Yeah, so you were a foreigner coming into Carrick.
Oh yeah, it was
16 miles up the road.
It was a great adventure though, because the place that a place called Mount Richard that my parents leased out and turned into a guest house, had wonderful gardens and lots of trees. And it was a whole world of adventure, and I think I spent the next 5 years mostly off the ground up in trees rather than on the ground.
Yeah, I remember it well. We used to go out there every week when we got a bit older. There was a group of us, yourself, and it was a very kind of a Bohemian movement there in Carrick at the time, wasn't there?
What, you mean musically?
Musically, artistically, there was acting. There was Noel Carroll was probably at the.
Carrick has always been kind of a great town for the arts generally,
Yeah.
A musical theatre, serious dramatic theatre, and just bands of various kinds. And there was very little traditional music around, though. That's the one thing.
Except that when I mentioned about the folk music royalty, I mean, your uncles were the Clancy Brothers, and the Clancy Brothers are hugely influential.
Oh, they were. I mean, they totally transformed the way the whole country looked at our own music. When the Clancy Brothers and Tommy Macon made it in America, and then Ciarán Mac Mahona brought back some of their records and started to play them on Radio Éireann at the time. And there was a huge following, developed very quickly. And I remember, I think it was 1963 or 62, going to see them at the Olympia Theatre in Dublin, their first concert in Ireland. And I was... only recently I was thinking about that. I wonder, did that have some effect on me that I didn't realize at all? And that it was around that time I started picking up the guitar and playing. So it's possible that had an influence that I just never realized, But it worked in two ways, really. There was a direct link with us in the family to the Clancy Brothers and what they were doing, and the music they were bringing back home from America and all that. So that worked on one level. And then on another level, it was the whole cultural shift that happened in the country. As you remember, every town in Ireland had a ballad group all of a sudden, 4 guys in iron sweaters and a guitar and a banjo. There was all these imitators popped up. And the whole, what they call the ballad boom, really took off. Now, there were other people involved, like the Dubliners and that were all, doing it prior to that. But the Clancy Brothers and Tommy Macon kind of coalesced that whole thing into a kind of a movement, really. And I at the time we were all, we just kind of took it in our stride. We were very excited by the whole ballad boom. My sister Alice, as you mentioned earlier, she was a little older than me, and she played and sang. And then my mother, Bobby Clancy, talked my mother into starting a little folk club in the cellar in Mount Richard.
Yeah.
That's really where I started to play, because nobody wanted to be the first one to get up and play. And it was amazing, really, when you think about it, because there was nobody ever got paid, and nobody ever paid to get in. It was just all about the music. And people used to come from all over Ireland, either to play or to listen.
Yeah.
And, the place would be jammed on a summer's night in midsummer, and the sessions would go on to God only knows when. Sometimes carrying on through the whole weekend, one way or another.
And there was some quite well-known, famous people would come down.
Oh,
As
absolutely.
Seamus Ennis.
Yeah. Remember Johnny McAvoy coming down, the Dubliners in various stages, individually or collectively, and just about anybody who was into the music scene at the time would come down in the early days. And then later on, it became a little more kind of established as a music venue, and then we had other people come.
Yeah, one something that people might be surprised to hear is that the first time I ever heard the sash, or as some people say, the sash my father wore, that is very much has political connotations now.
Yeah.
The first time I ever heard that was actually in Mount Richard.
It was a regular song on a Saturday night. It was just a sing-along song that everybody sang.
Yeah.
Nobody seemed to be, nobody politicized it. I think we were just ignorant, really, of the repercussions of it. I think we considered it an Irish folk song, and we sang it,
And talking about Irish folk songs, I mean, it was a very fortuitous coupling when the Clancy Brothers teamed up with Tommy Makem, because his mother Sarah was a fantastic collector of songs, wasn't she?
Yeah. A woman called Deanne Hamilton, who was a folk music collector, and she was also the founder of Tradition Records, which the Clancys and Tommy Makem first recorded on, and they were kind of involved with running the company. And she came to Ireland in '56, I think, and Paddy had said, go to see my mother, she has a bunch of songs. So she did. And Liam was still there at the time, and she got Liam to go with her as her engineer, recording engineer, traveling through Ireland and Scotland, and was on that tour that they went to Tommy Makem's house to record his mother, Sarah, who had hundreds of songs. She was a wonderful source of songs. And Tommy and Liam were about the same age, and they kind of hit it off. And years later, when only a few years later, not very many, they were both in America, and they got in touch and got together. And the brothers had originally been, Paddy and Tom originally been singing at the White Horse Tavern and places like that. That was before Liam came out. So when he went out to America, then he just kind of fell in with them, and then later on Tommy joined the group.
But the Clancys did songs like Shellicky Bookie. I mean, would that have been a Carrick song?
Yeah, there were children's songs. Again, that was Deanne Hamilton's doing. She was fascinated with folklore of all kinds, and she thought she had heard the kids, singing. We were still, you and I were the end of that generation. We used to have the skipping rope songs and those kind of play songs, and she thought it would be really interesting to put a whole album together of that stuff. And she gathered up all the Clancy nieces and nephews, and they used to come up to Mount Richard, and we'd I remember a couple of meetings where we'd get together and try and figure out what we were going to do, and we'd kind of sing various songs from them. They decided what they wanted.
You were maybe apart from your uncles, you were one of the first superstars in Carrick because you won yourself and Alice and Sean and Noel Carl. You won the Kilkenny Beer Festival
ballad competition.
Ballad competition.
It was 68, I think that was.
Yeah.
It was a big deal at the time. The first prize was £500 or something. It was like a fortune.
But I always remember, we drove up together. All of us drove up there together. We're all friends, and on the way back, we were wondering, should we ask you for your autograph? You know, was it's one
it
of
didn't
those things.
it didn't
Something.
seem like such a big deal, you know. I mean,
Oh, well,
we were very intense about rehearsing and winning the thing. We were really happy to win it, but it didn't, you know, it wasn't extraordinary in some ways. We got an appearance then on the Late Late Show right after that. That was kind of terrifying. But then things just went right back to normal, you know.
well, it was a big deal. I have to say, yeah, it was a big deal for us, you know. But also, when you consider that the Kilkenny Beer Festival was probably one of the biggest festivals in Ireland, because I remember later on when I joined the Miami, that the lads telling me, I remember it was Brian McCoy was Brian and I used to, we were two insomniacs, and Brian would drive the personnel van home, and all the lads would be asleep in the back. But he was telling me that they were playing in Kilkenny during some festival. I think it was the beer festival, and there was a train specifically came from Dublin, a Kilkenny Beer Festival
Oh yeah,
special.
I'm sure there were a bunch of it. It was a huge festival. There was very few festivals in Ireland then. In fact, it might have been the very first one
Yeah,
of that type, you know, a music festival.
yeah.
And it went on for about 10 years, I think. I may be wrong on that, but it was, and it would get, you know, national coverage on radio and TV. It was a big deal at the time because there was nothing else.
And
So
our friends, our friends, that little collective that we had, as I say, with Noel Carl, Gay Brazel, Davy Prim, Billy Byrne, Jared Kwan, your cousin,
yeah,
God rest him. It was we were very much into music, and at the same time we had we didn't all share the same tastes, although we respected each other's. But I remember you were hugely influenced by Donovan.
yeah, I was a big Donovan
Remember
fan.
you used to, on the Sunday afternoons, you were playing Sunshine Superman and all of those songs, and also by yourself and Noel would harmonize with
Well,
the
Simon and Garfunkel
Simon and
songs, yeah,
Garfunkel songs like
all
that.
that stuff.
And Gay Brazel was very much into country. Well, he's a fabulous guitar player. And Dave Prim, then
Yeah.
whenever you'd get Dave, he was like myself. He was interested in the blues and sort of soul music and that type of thing. But it was a fantastic melting pot.
And what's amazing, really, if you think about it, there were no teachers. We all had to learn for ourselves. We learned off each other what we could,
Yeah.
and we picked up what we could out of books and stuff. But we never had lessons, and nobody had formal music lessons at all
No.
of any
No.
kind. And you know, it was just a matter of getting on with it and doing it, and the excitement when you'd learn a new chord or something, you know.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. You and I were talking recently about that, running home from school at lunchtime, like go up down the dinner, pick up the guitar and play like hell, like for 20 minutes before running back to school, you know.
Yeah.
And it was madness, really, when you think about it.
I
But we were
used
so lucky, weren't we? I mean, what would our
yeah.
lives be if we didn't have the music in it?
Well, well, you've continued on playing. I mean, I played for a long time. Now and again, I still do, but there isn't the same opportunities. There isn't the same enthusiasm unless I play with Johnny Feen or somebody like that and do something that's
Yeah.
experimental. I like to do that. But you continued on, and you continued as an acoustic guitar player, really more
Oh yeah,
always.
I think I tried an electric guitar once, and I didn't suit me at all. That's
Yeah.
a whole. It's a different instrument, really. You know, it's a whole different way of playing and different kind of music. I just love the sound of an acoustic guitar.
And you also had I remember you had a fairly unique sort of finger style, um, uh, the picking style that you developed, as you say yourself, without any lessons. So that always,
Yeah, just kind of trial and error. And years later, people was something asked me to show them like how to do a particular finger style. I found it very difficult because I had no idea like what I was doing. It would just happen, you know. So I'd
yeah,
have to kind of deconstruct it and try and figure out what I was doing before I could show it to somebody. It was very influenced too by guitarists like James Taylor. I loved the way that he
yeah,
played the guitar,
yeah.
a lot of hammer-ons and, you know,
Right.
pull-offs and that kind of stuff. And to me, that was always the sweetest sound, was just a real nice, warm acoustic guitar.
James Taylor, obviously, and also Paul Simon, just a fabulous guitar player as
Oh
well.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. My interests were running along the whole folk thing at the same time. I got into like the more traditional side of stuff through my brother-in-law, really, Sean, and that kind of led me down a different path because accompanying tunes then became a different style of playing, you know. So my musical life continued to be schizophrenic because then when I moved to America, I was doing one kind of music on my own. I was doing another kind of music when I toured with the Clancy Brothers for 20 years almost, and then another 10 years with Liam. And then I was involved with Mick Maloney in a group called the Greenfields of America, and a trio with Mick and Jimmy Keane. And basically, they were all kind of different kinds of music, which was great in one way, is that you never got bored. You were constantly, you know, doing new stuff, something new to yourself, you know. But I think over the years, the thing I enjoyed more than anything else was songwriting. I started that fairly young, about 13 or 14, I think, when I was 13 when I wrote the first song. And that stayed with me. You know, I'm still writing songs. And I probably get more satisfaction from that. I enjoy performing, but performing can be, as you know, I can be very dodgy because unless the conditions are right, you can't really relax and enjoy it. And it's so hard technically, particularly at festivals. Whereas when it works well, when it all comes together, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
But when something like songwriting is very much a solitary thing, and the sense of satisfaction you get from creating something essentially out of nothing, you know, there's something there that wasn't there before, you know, that's a real sense of satisfaction.
Robbie, look, I'd love to hear one of your original songs. I've heard lots of them, and leave it up to you which one you want to do.
Okay, one of the traditional music influences on me in terms of singers was a man called Frank Harte, and Frank died back in, I think it was 2008, 2009. He was well known as an unaccompanied singer and started off very much as a Dublin singer, singing Dublin street songs and such. But he became a great collector of songs as well. And for 17 years, he would come out every summer to America, and we both would teach at an Irish music school down in West Virginia, a place called Elkins. So we became great friends. And Frank was an amazing character, and he knew about 10,000 songs. I mean, literally. And he had coined a wonderful expression that I thought was amazing. It was those in power write the history, those who suffer write the songs, which is a very profound statement if you think about it. And when he died, I wanted to write a song as a tribute to him. In fact, I ended up writing two songs about Frank. And but this one, I wanted to use those great words of his as the chorus. And I had asked him one day, how did you get into singing, Frank? Because he grew up in Chapelizod. His parents had a pub there, just at the outskirts of Dublin at that time. And but he spent his childhood holidays, his father was from Sligo. So he told me the story of about how he kind of came across Irish music and the influence that. So I used that story in this song, which is, I always thought of Frank as the keeper of the songs. So that's what I called it. That once brash voice is silent now, no more we'll hear it soar, to call us back to Dublin streets or Napoleon's cruel war, to feel again the nation's pride as our heroes made a stand, for the sorrows of our countrymen when great hunger gripped the land. Though his voice rings out no more, his words still linger on. Those in power write the history, those who suffer write the songs. It was was on the streets of Boyle one day. He heard a tinker's song of those heroes bold in Knockanure, who bitterly were wrong. His life would never be the same from that fateful moment on, for he realized he'd found the truth in the verses of a song. Though his voice rings out no more, his words still linger on. Those in power write the history, those who suffer write the songs. For the voices of his people and the stories that they told, he cherished like a wealthy man, my treasure bars of gold. Their songs like ghosts that long endured through centuries now gone, were proudly given life once more by the keeper of the song. Though his voice rings out no more, his words still linger on. Those in power write the history, those who suffer write the songs. Though his voice rings out no more, his words still linger on. Those in power write the history, those who suffer write the songs.
Oh, it's a beautiful song.
Thank you.
It's a beautiful song.
Yeah.
It's, I suppose, folk songs are still one of the greatest vehicles to carry forward our history and to tell the stories of what went before.
Yeah, I mean, Frank used to say the songs were eyewitness accounts of events. You know, not all songs are, obviously, but a lot of folk songs are written about actual events, you know. And it's one of the ways, it's very hard to define what is a folk song, but the closest I could ever come to it was a song about real events or real emotions. Do you know what I mean? It's there's a kind of a reality to those songs that you don't get, say, in pop songs. Yeah, well, sometimes you can, but you know what I mean. But
Yeah.
it's grounded in history and in stories and what happened to people and events and all that stuff. So
I think one of the advantages that folk music has is the fact that it can be played near enough by anybody. You don't have to have a big elaborate band, or you can just sit there like you did with an acoustic guitar.
Or even without. Some of the most powerful songs are sung unaccompanied.
Yeah. I suppose coming from guitar background myself, that I'm inclined to, you know, I like the idea of the guitar playing its part in it. When you consider that folk music must have been fairly prominent in the life of Phil Lynott from Thin Lizzy. You know, his first big hit was Whiskey in the Jar.
But that was Seamus Ennis had a different version of that. That version that became popular was actually an American version that I think somebody like Peter, Paul and Mary had done first. Some of the American folk revival acts had done first. So it was one of those songs. There's a lot of songs like that. It's very interesting. The Wild Rover, for instance, is an Australian song, and the Black Velvet Band is an Australian song.
Yeah.
And Whiskey in the Jar is an American song. And yet they all become Irish because they get adapted by the Irish. Yeah. And adopted by the Irish, and you know they kind of become Irish songs.
I certainly remember your uncle Bobby singing "Whiskey in the Jar" in both in Mount Richard and in Tin Vein.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, he was probably the one who sang. I don't know if the others ever did it. I think it may be one of those songs that became too popular, and then they didn't, you know, when they were in America, it became popular in Ireland, and then they didn't bother recording it.
Yeah.
There was a few songs like that that kind of fell into that category.
And that style was very much, well, they Brennan on the Moor and songs like that they did, but it wasn't all sort of belt out sing along songs. They did some very soft. The song October Winds, was
Yeah,
it
there was
called
some,
October Winds?
you know, a funny thing with the whole thing with the Clancy Brothers and Tommy Makem, they were such a huge success, and they spawned so many imitators that over the next 20 years, their legacy kind of got diminished
Yeah,
by all the imitators, and they became kind of categorized as a belted out pub song band, and they weren't really that at all. You'd really have needed to see them on stage to realize uh, the other side of what they were doing. Now, I was doing a concert in Philadelphia back around 2000, so early 2000s, and a friend of mine who was a big Clancy fan said to me, "I have a present for you." And after the show, he gave me this CD, a double CD recently released by Sony, remastered version of the Carnegie 1964 or 63 Carnegie Hall concert that Clancy Brothers and Tommy Makem did. And he said, it's fantastic. He said, will you promise me you'll listen to it on the way home? I was driving back to Rhode Island, and it was like a 5-hour drive. And I said, I will. And I'm driving home, the radio's on, and thinking, oh God, I've just finished the gig. I didn't feel like listening to music, and I didn't feel like listening to the Clancys, because I was so familiar with all that stuff. And my sense of guilt got to me. I told them I'd listen to it. I better put it in, I popped it in the CD, and I was blown away by how good it was. I had forgotten just how precise and excellent they were when they were in their prime. And if you listen to it, like you say, that everything from poetry to soft, quiet songs to musical interludes, and as well as some of the rowdy stuff, but it wasn't by any means all rowdy music. And there was a great passion in what they did, and they were able to put it over in a unique way that nobody had ever done before. And it just brought it home to me that that their legacy really had been diminished by so many imitators, that people kind of forgot how excellent they were when they were in their prime.
The song that I mentioned, I said October Winds. Is that called The Castle of Dromore? What was the proper title of that?
It goes under both titles, I think, but I think it's properly known as The Castle of Dromore.
Yeah, it's a beautiful song.
It's a beautiful song, yeah.
And actually, I remember when we were doing the Netflix documentary recently, um, the producer Alexandra Orton told me that one of the theme songs that they were going to run throughout the the program was The Parting Glass. And so I looked up because we were going to do, which we did with our mutual friend and your great friend Tommy Sands and actually Liam Dwyer from Carrick, my friend. We were going to do a little spot in the studio, in Tommy's little studio out there on the Ryan Road.
Mm.
And so I thought, well, I better have a look at the chords of this song, or the arrangement. And the one that I settled on obviously was Liam Clancy's version. And the chords, beautiful arrangement.
Yeah. And you're right. There are chords there, like you're playing an A minor when you expect an F,
Yes.
or vice versa.
Yeah.
And it's still one of the songs I've never ever tired of. It's just a gorgeous piece.
Your uncles must have had a big influence on Bob Dylan.
He did a version he took the melody from Brennan on the Moor and did a song called Ramblin' Gamblin' Willie. And the Parting Glass he used, and I wrote a song called The Restless Farewell. And the Leaving of Liverpool then was one, what was the name of it? I can't remember, something with the Leaving or something. So he was part of the folk scene in Greenwich Village in the early 60s, and they played in the same clubs. They knew each other and they were friends. Liam and Bob Dylan were pretty good friends. And So there was definitely some influence there.
I remember you seeing you playing on Bob Dylan's 25th anniversary concert, and you were in good company, or they were in good company with you.
Yeah, that was a hell of a night.
Who was it? There was Dylan, there was Ron Wood, was it?
Yeah.
How many?
Oh, geez, everybody, as you can imagine.
The
Lou
Birds.
Reed, yeah, the band. But Ronnie Wood was sharing a dressing room with us. You couldn't meet a nicer, more down-to-earth guy.
Yeah.
And like my daughter was about 13 or 14 at the time. She was there, and he was chatting away to her. Oh yeah, what school? You know, what class are you in school, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it was hilarious. He's chatting away and he's drinking his beer, and then somebody comes. Okay, Ronnie, you're up. You know, so the wife or somebody's there with him, and they just grab the top of his head, hold the hair up, put a hairspray all around it, and that was it. That was his preparation for going on stage. But he was great. He said, "Oh, I got a place in Kildare. You guys should come up and visit. We'll have a session. You know, I've got a studio too if you want to record." It's just really, really nice. You know.
Yeah. And he's also a fabulous artist, isn't he? He paints a lot.
Oh, I didn't know that. No.
Yeah, yes, very prolific painter. Perhaps you'll do another song. Will it be an original? And tell us about it, whatever the choice is.
Yeah, I'll do a song called "There Is Hope." It's something we all need at the moment. And I wrote this in the 90s when the peace process broke down at one point, and it looked like the whole thing had fallen apart. And you know, I often say that being Irish, we find it very hard to be optimistic at times. And Yeats put it very well. He said that being an Irishman, he had an abiding sense of tragedy, which sustained him through temporary periods of joy. So I thought, well, you know, I'm not going to write a sad song. I'll write a hopeful song. And it was actually inspired. My cousin Fionnán O'Connell is a wonderful photographer, and he had taken a photograph of me. He's always snapping pictures when you're out and about, walking along the street in Dublin in the rain, carrying a guitar. I think we were going to a gig or something, and we're going by a big billboard that had been put up where a building had been knocked down. And it was just black background, and in big white bold letters it said, "There is hope." So it's like me with the head down into the rain going by, and this sign says, "There is hope." And when I saw that picture, I thought, God, I've got to make that into a song, you know. So when the peace process came along, then, or when that whole thing happened, I wrote this song. Let me see if I can get this right. Like crystal crashing on a stone floor, all the plans lie shattered now. The glass shards tempered in a healing fire can take another shape somehow. People say that it's too late now. Time to change has come and gone, but I believe there is hope now. Hope to change and carry on, and carry on. Behind wire fences and by concrete walls, among the rubble, flowers still thrive. They stretch their heads up to the sunlight, determined always to survive. People say that it's too late now. The time to change has come and gone, but I believe there is hope now. Hope to change and carry on, and carry on. The preacher is quick to quote the Bible, very slow to change his heart. Words that should bring us together are used to keep us all apart. People say that it's too late now. The time to change has come and gone. But I believe there is hope now. Hope to change and carry on, and carry on. History books are filled with stories that tell us when but never why. Though we can't find all the answers, we still can keep the hope alive. People say that it's too late now. The time to change has come and gone. But I believe there is hope now. Hope to change and carry on, and carry on. Yes, I believe there is hope now. Hope to change and carry on, and carry on.
Another lovely song, and maybe we can dedicate that to all of the peacemakers who are
Absolutely.
working so very hard to
Yeah.
hold the line when there's a bit of turmoil and happening at the moment. Having said that, you're a regular visitor to up to Ross Trevor, to your friend Tommy Sands' place.
Yeah, Tommy and Colin and Katrine and the whole gang of them actually have been friends for a long, long time. Tommy and Colin used to come down to Caricature when we had the hotel there on for weekends. This was back in the late 70s, 76, 77, 78.
That would be the Tin Vein Hotel, was it?
Yeah, it was called the Tin Vein Hotel. And I'd set up a gig for them in Waterford at the Granville Hotel had gigs on a Friday night. So they do the Granville on a Friday night, and then they do our place on a Saturday night. But they'd usually stick around for a few days. We had some mighty adventures, some wonderful times. And they were just such great guys, you know, and they had different songs from everybody else. And they were such good company. And we had so many wonderful times. And I originally met them actually in the States. We were both singing in a place outside Boston called the Harp and Bard. This would have been about 1972 or 73, probably the spring of 73. And so when Roxanne and I moved back to Ireland in 76, my mother was killed in a car accident, and we came back and ran the hotel for about 3 years. And things were tough at the end of the 70s economically. So we bailed out and back to the States, and back now after 35 years over there. So,
and yet it only seems like yesterday that you and I were racing each other down Pill Road from school. Yeah. I had a shorter distance. I lived at the very start of Craig Road, and you lived
I had to go up that hill on my bicycle every time and wait for the train to go by if the gates were closed.
It does seem like, in one way, it seems like so long ago that so much has happened and so many things have changed. And yet, you know, talking to you now just makes me feel that it'd be great to go back there and do some kind of a concert and get as many lads together that are still standing and do a night someplace. I'm sure Billy Byrne would organize that. He's a great man for doing that. When you were singing that song, I mean, clearly you had an interest in the peace process. How important was it to you, even though you were living abroad?
I became much more aware of it by living abroad than I did. It seems to me, and I might get myself in trouble for saying this, but it seems to me that back in the late 60s when things really started, the majority of people in the south of Ireland didn't want to know about it. And actually visiting Tommy Sands one time, and we were driving over to a session somewhere in South Armagh and stopped by a British Army patrol and, pulled out of the car. And I thought, my God, if I had to put up with this every day, things would be different. It suddenly put things in a different light for me. Because of that, I started to look at it a little bit differently. It sounds, very simple and kind of naive, but I really didn't understand the complexities of the situation at all in the early days. And it was really only as time went on that I began to notice. And sometimes you can see things clearer from afar when you're not really in the midst of it. You have a more general picture. I saw it more in historical terms. I saw the big picture rather than the small picture, People like Tommy Sands and all the pro-peace people, those were the people that I admired the most. And yourself, I don't know if I would have had the ability to be as forgiving and to be as positive a force as yourself and Eugene and Tommy and people like that. Uh, it's, I suppose you have to be tested really to find out. But I have great admiration for all the people who are trying to make things better.
It's one of the most powerful things about the music, like the song you've just sang, and Tommy's famous song "There Were Roses." One of the great things is that they're soft, gentle songs, and yet they are immensely powerful.
Yeah, well, there were roses, a really emotional song. I actually recorded that before Tommy did. He happened to be staying at my house in Massachusetts at the time, shortly after he wrote it, and I thought it was an amazing song. And I was in the midst of doing an album at the time with Mick Maloney and Jimmy Keane. So Tommy gave me the song, and we recorded it, and it actually came out before his version of it. And I don't know if he ever told you the story, but he had to change the names.
Yeah.
Because the family got upset. You can understand why. But, we had already put the song out before we even found out that. And it was one of our big songs in our concert tours in terms of it packed an emotional impact. And it was songs like that. They're very important. There was another song I did called Kilkelly. I did it on the Bringing It All Back Home show years ago, and that became one of our big songs in the States as well. Two very sad, very emotional songs, and there were kind of awkward things in a way, because when she sang them on stage, even though the audience was very moved by it, you created this kind of big hole in the middle of your set that you had to climb out of again, and you'd always have to follow it with something completely and utterly different. And so it got to the point where you almost didn't want to sing them anymore, because it became almost too emotional. When they were fresh and new and people didn't know them, then it was kind of okay. But it's written by a man called Peter Jones in the States. A powerful song. I don't know if you've ever heard it, but it's based on a series of letters. Again, getting back to what's a folk song, there's actual letters of a man from Kilkelly, just in County Mayo, not far from, oh God, what's the town that's near? Kiltima, and that area there. And it's a series of letters that span from 1860, 70, 1890, 1850s, I think. It's the years after the famine. And the letters back and forth to the members of the family, and then one emigrates, another one comes back and stuff. And it's very, very dark, and but it's real. And I really toyed with learning it in the beginning, because it was so emotional, and at the same time, it was so real that I felt that it was worth doing. And it was a fine line, because if you got too sentimental with it, you kind of just made it maudlin. So it was it was a bit like playing Hamlet every time you had to sing it. You had to get that fine line, not cross over into the maudlin, but still keep the emotion in it. But songs like that are powerful. That's what they have a term for that in America. They call it a driveway song. Meaning you're in your car and the song comes on and you get home and you have to stay in the car until it finishes. And over the years, I got mail in the early days and loads of emails. I must have gotten over 100 emails from people about that song, all telling me that how blown away they were by it. Of all the songs that I ever did, that was the one that got the most emotional response. But we traveled in the 80s. We played in every state in America except North and South Dakota for some reason, and that includes Alaska and Hawaii. It was we were all over the place. We were taking Irish music to places they'd never heard of before. We'd be in a little town in Montana, and they'd be lined up around the block to come in, and we had a wonderful time. It was a mix of instrumental, driving instrumental music and songs. And a lot of people were kind of hearing the music for the first time.
Can people hear the song Kilkelly on your website? Can they get it on the album?
All my stuff is on Spotify and Pandora, Apple iTunes, Amazon, all those things. You can find it anywhere. You'll be able to find it. If you just Google Maloney O'Connell and Cian Kilkelly, Kilkelly. But I'd love to get together for a good session with a bunch of other singers and whatever, musicians.
Yeah.
Down around here in County Waterford, with before the lockdown, there was some great sessions in places like Ring and Dungarvan, Clashmore here. We had some great stuff going on. So as I get older, I kind of go back to the same thing as the early days. It's all about the music. It's not about the performances,
I consider the performances that your uncle Liam Clancy did. The stories were as important as the song itself, the lead up. And
oh, absolutely, yeah. And it's something that I inherited, and a lot of folk singers do, because if you're singing a song from the 18th century, unless you set it up and give it context, it can be meaningless. And the thing is that most of the songs have a universal theme, so everybody can relate to them, but it enriches the experience if you understand where it's coming from. I don't think I ever sing a song without saying something about it,
It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you again, and I hope we don't leave it too long, and hopefully this lockdown.
Oh, we're not living too far away from each other now, so when things improve, we should get together. I'd love you to take you on a trip up the River Blackwater someday. Some nice sunny day, come up and we'll go up.